when I was in Hartford, or in West Elm in New York, I learned to drive, and I wanted to pass the test to be a regular driver. So the inspectors were working under the state, you know. Said to me one day, "You're trained okay?" He says, "You think you can feel you can make it?" I says, "Yeah, I know how to do it." So he gave me a truck with the inspectors and took me up on this great big hill. I did all my thing and everything. He says, "Go down the hill." Okay. If you all remember, them were the days when the trucks and cars didn't have automatic transmissions. They had manual transmissions, stick shift. I learned the double clutch. Double clutching meant that you synchronize the engine to the wheels so you could get it in gear. Well, I'm turning around doing my thing. The inspector says, "Okay, get down the hill." And he looked at me and says, "Take it out of gear." I'm flabbergasted. Out of gear, I'm going down this big hill, like the one in the we're coasting down real fast. He says, "Okay, now put it back in gear. You're supposed to double clutch it, equalize the system, and put it in gear." I never made it. Down we coasted. I was sweating bullets. Anyway, I failed. Then I got transferred to Hamlin Beach. There's where I met my Indian friends that were from the Tonawanda Reservation. He was a great guy and a great driver. He taught me the rest. And I became a real driver. At Hamlin Beach, I was instrumental in hauling the stone out of the quarries that we built Hamlin Beach with the timbers from Letchworth Park. They became a pretty good force here. I did well. When my stint was over there, there's where I came back, I was going to go to work. I worked too many jobs. I was going to go back to school. I didn't do it. So I'll tell you, it might be funny to you. I joined the National Guard. You gotta hear this. So I went up and took all the tests. I did okay. Took my physical. Physically, I'm okay. I'm not a very big guy. So I'm going down through, there's about 20 of us going down through. The doctors are up front, completing the examination and everything, checking you in or checking you out. So the guy that was the second last guy in line, the guy ahead of me went, they take him. The doctor looked at me, he says, "Well," he says, "you're healthy." He says, "But you can't come." I said, "Why?" You gotta believe this. He says, "You're too short." Oh, well, all right. So I had to give up on that, right? My buddy that I went there with, right, he got in. He was very unhappy. Like, we were together all the time, right? Had a great buddy in those days. Anyway, he ended up in the National Guard and in the Army and went through all the battles and everything. I turned around, went home, and I went to work on a construction crew. In them days, you know, I was a jackhammer operator. We were taking up the tracks out of the city streets so buses could run on. And I decided, I don't know, I don't remember exactly why or how I did it, but I went to the Naval Reserve Office. I says, "I'm going to join the Navy. I don't think you have to be as tall as they want you in the Army." And it was true. I got in there, and I got into the Naval Reserve. That's when I went back to work on the job I had. I was there only about 4 or 5 days when I got a phone call. It says, "The Navy is looking for you. Your orders will be in the mail." So that day I went home. A couple of days later, here comes my orders. And a nice pamphlet, wrote, "Newport, Rhode Island, bound." There's my thought came to me and says, "I want to be a metalsmith." So that big man says, "They got a metalsmith school in Florida." Well, when I was going through training in Newport, Rhode Island, I had to pass certain tests to go to middle school. And I was accepted. So after we graduated, went through our final training and everything, and I went through the gas chamber training and all that stuff. This was June of 1941. We were put on a train, Pensacola, Florida bound. I'm real happy. Right? And a lot of the guys at the training camp were assigned to ships. I was kind of jealous. Most of them were going to Hawaii. Right? Not knowing what was going to happen. Anyway, I felt a little jealous. All my friends were going to go to Hawaii and enjoy the nice weather, and I was going to go to school down in Pensacola. Well, as it happened, I got to Pensacola, got down there to be assigned my duties. No place to put me, because they were still evaluating people. In fact, at that particular time, the Selective Service Board is looking for me, because nobody knew where I was. So I had to go through the Red Cross to let them know I was already in the Naval Service. So I took care of all that paperwork. While I'm up there, I met some radio men that were I learned the communication area real well. And I was going back and forth on my bicycle. And one of the boys up in the communication building was a radio man at that time. He says, Stan, why don't you come up here? We'll teach you radio. We'll teach you the code. We'll teach you the blinker. We'll teach you the theory. He says, and then take about 6 months. And you can take the exam for third-class petty officer. I said, oh boy. So I went up there every night for my job. Studied the radio, learned the blinker, learned the Morse code, learned how to type. In them days with typewriters. And I learned the communication building of business. Lo and behold, opportunity showed up. Pearl Harbor got hit. They reassigned me in Pensacola to the Naval Transmitting Station, which has about 30 transmitters for ground-to-air communications. We're training people to fly the PBY airplanes to fly them back to England. The U.S. government was sending the people trained with a plane back to England. And part of my duty was at the ground station. And we took care of all the ground information. We installed transmitters, so on and so forth. And it worked out very well. I was there for almost 4 years. 1945, I finally get my orders to go to sea. So I got assigned to an old Liberty ship, the AK-179, the USS Faribault, cargo ship. So we delivered cargo out of Frisco to the islands of the South Pacific, but I never saw any live action. As soon as they capitulated and we had troops that week, I went from the Philippines, Saipan, and then to Yokosuka Naval Base to see what was going on. They were winding the war down. Then I had like 4 years and 8 months in the service. The war was really over. Things weren't too good at home. My mother was very sick and everything, and I felt like I should go home, so I asked the captain to give me orders to go home. So they put me on a small aircraft carrier back to San Diego, and I came home. And that was my stint during the war in the U.S. Navy and earlier in the Civilian Conservation Corps. So I didn't gain one big thing. I stayed healthy until last November. Last November, I'm retired. I'm already retired from my job. I'm doing well. And I learned how to take my own heart rate and so forth. This you gotta hear. So last November, I'm walking 2 miles a day from where I live. I live in Greece. And the town hall is 2 miles from Ridge Road. And I would walk up there and back. One day I'm walking So I'm from near my house. I'm almost across the street. And I felt kind of woozy. Geez, that's strange. Taking my pulse. It's 60. About an hour later, it was 58. Then it went to 56. And I have two grandsons. One is an EMT with the fire department. He's still doing that job. So my daughter's trying to take my blood pressure and so on and so forth. So we called him up, and I'm home. My heart rate is going down and down. It's down to 48. So we got him on the phone instead of calling 911. We got him on the phone, and you got to hear it. It's Grandpa. He says, "Don't move. Stay where you are." He says, "There'll be a fire truck and an ambulance at your house in the next 10 minutes." So, lo and behold, 10 minutes later, the technicians all came down, checked me over. They found that they had what they call a black. I says, "What do you mean? I had no pain, no nothing." She says, "You got a black." He says, "The control section of your heart, where all the artery veins are, they control the portion of your heart for the timing." He says, "It's wearing out." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, I don't feel nothing, anything. I says, "What's the cause of that?" And then they rushed me, took me to the hospital, and I asked the same question again. And the doctor says, "But I gotta tell you, it's old age." "Well, thanks, Doc." I lived through that part. So they ended up putting in a pacer. I'm operating on a pacer. And I'm doing well. Yesterday I walked 2 miles without getting tired. So study your science and your chemistry and the theory behind medicine. You'll be okay. Okay? 92 years still walking on my own. What the hell? I call myself the bionic guy. So look forward to better things.